Hello and welcome to the Power of First program. As part of Deloitte's management consulting partnership with the International Olympic Committee, we are thrilled to be on the ground at the Olympic Games Paris 2024 and coming to you from Maison Deloitte. My name is Jeff Harris. I'm a partner and a national leader for our Sport Business Advisory Group at Deloitte Canada, and I'm also fortunate to serve on our firm's IOC account leadership team. I am joined today by three retired Olympians: Kaveh Mehrabi, the Director of the Athletes Department at the International Olympic Committee; Becky Wing, Manager of Global Sponsorships at Deloitte Brand; and Greg Douglas, a Manager in our Sport Business Advisory Group from Deloitte Canada. So I want to thank each of you for being with us today, and also personally thank you for keeping my streak going of being the least athletically accomplished individual in a discussion in any presentation meeting that we have with the IOC. Today is another Power Of panel, and we're going to be diving in on the important topic of athlete employability, including the common challenges and barriers that athletes can face while pursuing opportunities beyond competition. Speaking of which, let's go get started. And Kaveh would love to start with you and just understand, like, athlete employability. Why is it so important to you, the IOC, and the Olympic movement broadly?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I guess for us it's very important because athletes give everything to get to the Olympic Games. You know, it's a long journey. There's a lot of theory out there, the 10,000 hours, the 10 years, whatever you want to look at it. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of time. And from our perspective, what is really important is that we want to truly demonstrate that we want to look after the holistic well-being of the athletes already before they get to the games. So before competition, and then of course at the games, we want to provide really the Olympic experience, once in a lifetime experience to them. And then in the context of our conversation today is about also after the games. Once you're looking to retire from sport and the life after sport, we want to make sure that they know we are there for them. So it's really, in our conversation, we typically separate the athlete's life to three phases: before the games, during the games, and after the games. And we want to be sure that they know we are there for them also after the competition when they retire. And of course, it's not a secret that retiring and transition to the life after sport is one of the main challenges for many, many athletes. And we think and we know we have a role to play, we have a responsibility, and we want to play our role there. So that's why it's very important for us to really looking after athletes, their holistic well-being.
Oh, we appreciate that, because the athletes and having the chance to be at some of the events thus far, there's such an inspiration for us. So knowing that there's individuals and organizations who are starting to think about what's next and looking up for them in that matters is very important. And Greg, I'd love to ask you the same question, but from a Deloitte perspective. Why is athlete employability so important to the firm?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first and foremost, athletes are a differentiated talent pool, not just for our organization, but society as a whole. As Kaveh mentioned, that 10,000 hours pursuing their sport, that's 10,000 hours of pursuing excellence. So when you bring that mindset, those unique traits and skill sets that athletes have into an organization such as Deloitte, we find that it makes our organization stronger. Working with our people, we have people from all around the world who get to work with Olympians, athletes, Paralympians. They are inspired and work better. And that helps us to serve ultimately our clients better. The organizations, the communities that we serve, we get to bring those unique skills, traits to our broader societies by bringing them into our firm. The next piece, when we think about the Olympic Games, ultimately this is an amateur event. These athletes don't have multi-million-dollar contracts and endorsement deals by coming here. For the most part, some are very famous, but 99% of them, will be transitioning out of sport to, typical careers that the rest of people in society have. So by Deloitte, supporting this movement, helping this great population of unique, talented, great people transition, it really helps us live our Deloitte mission of making that impact that matters. By helping the athletes, we are helping society, helping businesses, helping organizations, helping countries progress forward. So it's been a real opportunity and privilege for Deloitte to bring athletes on and work with the IOC in this space. And the last thing I'll mention is, one of the ways that we actually live this is we have Team Deloitte. So we had 30 Deloitte employees pursue the Olympics and Paralympics in Paris here. We had actually 15 of them actually qualify and competing here, which is very exciting. So while working at Deloitte, they were able to pursue the Olympics and Paralympics. Their colleagues got to follow them along. And it just shows that, you can work at Deloitte, you can work in business, but also pursue the Olympics and Paralympics, which was a lot of fun.
And appreciate the acknowledgement of it being here in Paris right now about Team Deloitte and their endeavors, not just over the next few days or the last few years, but kind of through their life to get to this point. And again, at Deloitte, we're very proud that our Team Deloitte is as well joining the over 35 Olympians and Paralympians that we have at our firm who represent 15 countries. So in addition to being inspiring and exciting, like the Olympics actually truly is a leadership factory. So we've chatted about from an organizational perspective. Becky, would love to, kind of more personally speak to kind of your experience, transition to career post athletics, and specifically, what were some of those skills and experiences from your athletic career that have helped you not just in your transition, but also have sustained, a very successful career at Deloitte after that?
There are so many skills that are important to success in the workplace. My coach used to always say that to be an elite athlete, it's 10% physical and 90% mental, because all the elite athletes are in peak physical performance, but what differentiates the winners is how they can overcome adversity and how driven they are. And so when you look at those skills in that 90%, they are the same skills that will make you successful in the workplace. So it's resilience and discipline and time management and coachability. And I think that continual need for improvement, I think you'll be pressed to find an athlete who is ever truly comfortable or happy with their performance. There is always something that you can be doing better. And I think that mindset is not just limited to sports. I think that athletes take that mindset to anything that they do in life, and they're always looking to better themselves. So I think that these skills that athletes have, naturally they find themselves set up for success in whatever they choose to do after sport. And I think that's super important.
Yep. And we're fortunate that you chose to do that with us here at Deloitte. So Kaveh, the title of our panel is From Personal Best to What's Next. So what's next for the IOC and the Olympic movement? How can we at the Olympic movement could come together to accelerate athlete employment over the coming decade?
No, that's exactly what we are focusing with Deloitte on. The program and our focus on career transition goes a long way back. We really started back in 2005. And we have done quite a lot. We have reached over 60,000 athletes across the globe. But as you said, now we are looking at what's next and looking at the partnership we have with Deloitte and all the area of work and expertise that you guys have now. As you know, we are working on the framework for the entire Olympic movement, which hopefully will be ready in the next few months. And the idea is through this framework, we will also equip a bit better athletes for getting ready for that transition. At the same time, and I will argue more importantly, getting the organization ready. The different organization, being it different top sponsors or the people and local organization further down in the chain, if you like, that they know how they can embrace this huge opportunity. I mean, both Greg and Becky spoke about the values that athletes bring to the organization. Frankly, I don't think all the organization yet understand that. So through the work that we are doing with Deloitte, and you guys are trying to help the companies and organizations understand that value, and through that, hopefully opening a lot of doors. So in terms of what's next concretely, hopefully in a few years' time, we will have a similar panel and we'll talk about how so many organizations across the movement have really embraced this mentality and is understood as something that really brings value to them and is not a, if you like, for the lack of a better term, okay, I'm just doing this because I feel is the right thing for the athletes. No, I'm doing this because it's the right thing for our athletes, but actually as an organization, from the business point of view, I'm winning a lot here.
Yes.
And if we can get there in the next few years, I think we have cracked really a big milestone for everyone.
No, and I mean, you mentioned the work, Kaveh, that we're doing together, and obviously, though very excited insofar as the strategy, the framework, that we're doing right now. Definitely, it's not a point-in-time exercise. Is just as equally as excited as how we work together to put that into practice to support athlete hiring at different levels and types of employment over the next decade. So, Becky, back to you. You were very kind in sharing with us some of the skills, the experiences that you've had that helped, not just, again, your successful transition, but, continued success at Deloitte. Also, I know we've had conversations in the past, there are challenges. So I would appreciate if you could be honest with us, be honest with our audience on what are some of the challenges that you encountered?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think that transition, for me, as it is for a lot of athletes, was tough. I retired when I was 22, at the same time I graduated from university. So I think that for almost 20 years, the two constants in my life were gymnastics, but also education. And so to stop those at the same time, I think was strange, because I suddenly didn't have that consistent schedule that I'd had for a very, very long time. But I will say that the more challenging part was the mental aspect of it. And I think that you have to find your identity after sport, because so much of your identity is wrapped up in who you are as an athlete, and you have to figure out what that is without sports. And it took me a while, I think, to figure that out. I recently heard an athlete say that the best advice she ever got was to not let the Olympics be the highlights of your life. And I think that's fantastic advice, but I do also think that is daunting, especially when some athletes go to the Olympics at such a young age. I was 16 when I competed in Beijing. And so I think, 22, retiring from the sport and seeing your whole life laid out in front of you with no kind of plan, that is really scary. And I think having had a lot of success at a young age, people around you expect you to continue to go on and do successful things. But I think when you're young and you feel like, oh, my success was from this sport that I no longer have to back me up, I don't know if I can top that. So that was incredibly scary to, I think, have the confidence to believe that I could go on and do something great and use those skills that I've learned. And I think, it took me some time to value and realize that I had learned those skills that were going to help me so much in the workplace. So I think now I can reflect back and really appreciate that, but it took me a while to get there.
Yeah, well, I want to appreciate the vulnerability and sharing with us and the audience, but also to kind of highlighting, you had the point of, a mentor, I'll call it, if I may well, said, don't let it be the peak. So I think it's like the importance, right, of having that support network around you and kind of staying on that thread, Greg, and this will be the last question of the panel. So thank you again for your time. Is a lot of times when in the work that we've been doing and talking and working with athletes, is like, yes, they missed the competition, but what they really miss is the community that comes with it. So love and for all the athletes who are with us, could you just share how kind of post your athletic career, like you've made sure to stay involved kind of within the sport community?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, before I hop in, I just want to pick up on something Becky mentioned, which I find fascinating. And truly, what's great about the Olympics is she spoke about competing at 16, retiring at 22. In my sport, in sailing, the average age of a medalist is actually 30, and many people are transitioning when they're 35. So it's really fascinating. We've been speaking about athletes, but we have to remember that this group is not homogeneous. That it is very diverse. People come from different backgrounds, retire at different ages. So as we speak about transition here, it could be, yeah, you're finishing sport, you're finishing school, you're starting out, but it could be, hey, you have a family, you have, been working or competing in sport for a long time, and then you're transitioning. It's a very different transition. So for every athlete, this transition can be very different. And in terms for me, how I stay connected with sport, very, very fortunate. I get to work in the sport business practice in Deloitte. And when I actually started at Deloitte in Canada, we didn't have a sport business practice. It actually, we formed it while I was at the firm, and I didn't expect to be able to work in sport when I started, but that's one of the great things about Deloitte. Being in a big organization, there's these opportunities for different careers, different experiences within the firm. So really, fortunate that Deloitte has provided that to me. And then, the final thing I'll mention, to any athletes out there, it's the thing that allows me to stay connected to sport is I actually try new sports all the time that I'm terrible at. I have done trampoline. I'm a sailor doing trampoline. I'm awful at it. But what it does is it reminds me how great sport is. And I just get the joy of trying something new, being terrible at something, but being connected to sport, doing it with other people. And that's one thing that has really, post-retirement from competitive sport, has allowed me to stay connected with sport, connected with the Olympic movement, because I just think there's so much power in just being active and getting out and trying new things. So get out there and try new things, athletes.
No, and one thing I need both having the privilege to work with both of you that I know you do, Beck and Grace, is mentor young athletes as well too. So I think that's also very important from a community perspective. So I want to thank you all again for joining us today, and thank you to all of you who tuned in, and reflecting on our conversation and all of the work that collectively we've done together. Like really, athletes, when I think of it, they're resilient, they're innovative, and from the Olympic community, they're global citizens. I mean, fortunate enough to work with a cohort like that, and sounds like the exact type of profile of something any organization would want on their team. So again, I want to thank you all for being with us here today. And if you're an athlete tuning in, I hope that what you've heard really does inspire confidence, like knowing your value and the value that you can bring to employers. If you're an organization who's part of the Olympic movement, I hope upon reflection, you leave here with a clear view of, hey, I see a role for my organization in expanding and accelerating athlete employment. And if you're an individual in a hiring role, a leader at any organization, I hope that you leave here today with a more nuanced perspective on the unique value that athletes can bring to your organization, and that you also serve as an internal champion. If you'd like to watch this panel playback along with others, please do head over to our LinkedIn Live. Thank you again for tuning in, and we will be back soon.